Hello and welcome to this special presentation on Rajya Sabha television, wherein we bring you some important questions asked by the members of the upper house and responded to by the government on the floor of the house. I am Vishal Dahiya and with me is my colleague Kriti Mishra.
Thank you so much, Vishal. So let's begin the question now show. So the first question that we've picked up is from member R. Vethalingam, and this question pertains to the Ministry of External Affairs. And the minister has asked the government whether it is a fact that India and China have agreed to speed up boundary talks.
Well, the External Affairs Ministry in its answer says that India and China have each appointed a special representative to explore the framework for a boundary settlement from the political perspective of the overall bilateral relationship. And there have been 21 meetings of these special representatives so far, with the last meeting being held in Chengdu on 24th of November 2018. At the Wuhan Informal Summit in April 2018, the leaders of India and China expressed their support for the work of the special representatives and urged them to intensify their efforts to seek a fair, reasonable and mutually acceptable settlement. The ministry further says that Bangladesh, China, India and Myanmar have agreed to establish a joint study group on strengthening connectivity in the BCIM region for closer economic, trade and people-to-people linkages through the development of a BCIM economic corridor. There have been 3 meetings of the BCIM EC JSG so far, with the last meeting being held in Kolkata on 24th and 25th of April 2017. The next question is also addressed to the Ministry of External Affairs, and this one comes in from the member Sukhdev Singh Dhindsa, who goes on to ask the government whether some women organizations want special transnational laws that could make extradition of absconding NRI husbands who deserted their wives and fled to foreign countries.
Vishal, this has been a burning issue for quite some time now, and the government has given a detailed reply, and the government says that the ministry has received petitions from several distressed women and women groups seeking help for extradition or deportation of absconding non-resident Indian spouses in case of fraudulent NRI marriages. Likewise, several distressed women as well as the Delhi Sikh Gurudwara Management Committee have separately approached the Supreme Court and the Delhi High Court respectively with similar requests, seeking protection of the fundamental rights of the wives abandoned by NRI husbands, including extradition, deportation of accused NRI spouses. Hence, the ministry has introduced a bill titled The Registration of Marriage of Non-Resident Indian Bill 2019 in the Rajya Sabha on February 11, 2019. The proposed legislation would offer greater protection to Indian citizens married to NRIs and help as a deterrent to the NRIs against harassment of their spouses and force the accused NRI spouse to come back to India to face legal consequences of his covert and overt acts. Between January 2016 and 31st of May 2019, the ministry, including the Indian missions abroad, have received and addressed 4,698 complaints of distressed Indian women deserted or harassed by their NRI spouses by providing guidance and information about procedures and mechanisms for serving judicial summons on the offending overseas Indian spouse, filing a case in an Indian court or police station, issuing lookout circulars and impounding and cancelling of Indian passport of the offending spouse. Moving on to the next question, and this question is to the Ministry of Communications, and this question has been asked by member Ripon Bora, and he has asked whether the government has plans to auction larger spectrum to ensure affordable 5G services in the country.
Well, the government says that it has planned to conduct the auction of a spectrum in the 700 megahertz, 800 megahertz, 900, 1800, 2100, 2300, 2500 megahertz, 3300 to 3400 megahertz and 3400 to 3600 megahertz band for providing mobile services using any technology, including 5G. The quantum of the spectrum put to auction is highest with respect to quantum of spectrum put for preceding auctions. The government further says that for all the previous spectrum auctions conducted by the government, the entire available spectrum was put to auction. However, the bidders, as per their requirements, decide the quantum and the bid value for the spectrum they want to buy during these auctions. The next question is to the Ministry of Atomic Energy, and this one has been asked by member MP Virendra Kumar, who wants to know from the government whether the domestic investment in generation of atomic energy is not sufficient in the country.
Well, the answer isn't negative, and the equity investment by Government of India in atomic energy is sufficient. The government further says that as regards domestic investment, the then Finance Minister in his budget speech in Lok Sabha on 29th of February 2016 had stated government is drawing up a comprehensive plan spanning next 15 to 20 years to augment the investment in nuclear power generation. Budgetary allocation up to 3,000 crore rupees per annum together with public sector investments will be leveraged to facilitate the required investment for this purpose. There is no proposal to promote foreign direct investment in nuclear power generation as the present policy, which is Consolidated FDI Policy of Government, puts atomic energy in the list of prohibited sectors. Moving on to the next question, and this question has been asked by member Jos K. Mani, and he has asked whether government has stepped up a process to identify the dead wood at the top rung of bureaucracy with a view to retire several non-performance during the next few months.
Well, the Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions in its answer says that the provisions under Fundamental Rules 56J, Rule 48 of Central Civil Services Rules 1972 and Rule 16(3) of All India Services Death cum Retirement Benefits Rule 1958 have laid down the policy of periodic review and premature retirement of government servants, which is a continuous process. Well, the next question is to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and this one has been asked by the member Syed Nasir Hussain, who wants to know from the government whether it is going for a policy decision to set up a medical college for every 3 districts.
While the government has said that the Ministry of Health administers a centrally sponsored scheme for establishment of new medical colleges attached with existing district or referral hospitals. Under phase 2 of the scheme, 24 new medical colleges in 8 states have been identified, with an objective to ensure the availability of 1 medical college in every 3 parliamentary constituencies and 1 government medical college in each state.
In fact, my colleague Kriti Mishra just a short while back spoke to the member Syed Nasir Hussain on his response to the government's answer to his question. Let's listen in.
So joining me is a Rajya Sabha member, Mr. Syed Nasir Hussain. Welcome to Rajya Sabha Television, sir. You've asked a very pertinent question on expansion of hospitals in the country. How important is the issue?
We still have areas in the country where we have shortage of good hospitals, shortage of good doctors. Only I think in the southern part of the country we have a large number of good colleges, especially because the private sector in this field has expanded like anything in the southern state. But the kind of donations that are asked, the kind of fees that is there in these colleges is exorbitant. The government of the country should look at the ratio. For every 10,000 patients or for every 10,000 people, we have 1 doctor. That is the ratio that is there in the country today. So I think there is a need that the government have to relook at the health policy of the country. They have to see that we have lots of indigenous doctors. We have doctors in rural areas, in urban areas, in semi-urban areas, in far-flung areas, in mountainous region, everywhere. We need that can only happen if the number of doctors are more, and that can only happen if the number of colleges are more.
So what needs to be done?
See, I think the government of India should collaborate with the state governments in every state and see to it either the state government come out with some good medical colleges for every at least 2 or 3 districts, or the central government should come out with their colleges of their own. When Oscar Fernandez was the Labour Minister, he said that we should use all the campuses of ESI hospitals across the country to build up colleges which can be attached to these hospitals, so that we have more number of students as doctors, and when they complete their graduation, we'll have a large number of doctors across the country. I think it started, I don't know where it stands now, but I know during UP at least there were 10-12 colleges that had come up which were attached to these hospitals. So the government should come out with some innovative idea as to how they can come up with more medical colleges.
All right, Mr. Hussain, that's a very important point that you're making, and thank you so much for joining us for the Question Hour show. Moving on to the last question now, and this one is to the Ministry of Textiles, asked by the member Muhammad Ali Khan. And he has asked whether the government has introduced new schemes with beneficiary-oriented components for promotion of silk industry in the country.
Well, the Textile Ministry in its answer says that under the central government scheme Silk Samagra, implemented by Government of India through Central Silk Board with a total outlay of 2,161.68 crore rupees for 3 years, that is 2017 to 2020, for development of sericulture in the country, mainly focuses on improving quality and productivity of domestic silk, thereby reducing the country's dependence on imported silk. The ministry further says that under the scheme, assistance is extended to sericulture stakeholders for the beneficiary-oriented components like raising of Kisan nursery, plantation with improved mulberry varieties, irrigation chowki rearing centers with incubation facility, construction of rearing houses, rearing equipments, door-to-door service agents for disinfection and input supply, support for improved reeling units like automatic reeling units, multi-end reeling machines, improved twisting machines and support for post-yarn facilities for quality silk and the fabric production. So, Kriti, that's all we have for our viewers in this segment of Question Hour.
Right, Vishal. And on the other side, we'll have our colleagues Arvind Singh and Kriti Singh with Prashn Kal. Stay tuned to Rajya Sabha Television.